unfortunately, we've also run out of time. I didn't want to end on such a tragic note. Thanks for that, John. But maybe I can bring it back to something Bob was talking about with Maria Sharapova, and I think she basically, she fell on her own sword, and she fell into that same trap as John Alexander. She quit before she had to, because if she held off for a couple of days and, you know, the science came to the fore, she wouldn't have had to sit out that time and serve a suspension like most of the other 200 people that tested positive. The discussion will continue, and I'm sure it's still got a very long way to go, especially when we're talking governance and we're talking wider and we're talking about the impacts on sport. But I think you've heard some great presentations today, both from overseas and from our panellists here in Australia. All credit to the organising committee that got this happening and continues to have the conversation. I think it's really important. All credit to you for coming and being involved and asking the questions. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you for having me, and would you please thank our panellists. Did you want to say something, Kim, in closing?
Yeah, I'd like to thank Tracey. We obviously had some technology difficulties tonight. Skype's, you know, is not the most reliable connections, unfortunately, but just the same, I think we had some great input and great discussion. I think one of the challenges for the justice for the 34 group, as it is for all people who are up against injustice and trying to redress it, is, I mean, politically, I'll chat later to you, John, is how do we do it? How do we get around it? Our group has tried now for what, 2, 3, 4 years to get a Senate inquiry, and we've had so little traction. And the reason is that both political parties made a mistake with this problem. The Labor Party made the first mistake, and then the Liberal Party followed it up. As it's like the NBN, isn't it, this problem? The problem we've got is we can't get a Senate inquiry by the looks of things at the moment. And because I think we've got the support of the crossbench parties and the independents, but we can't get a Senate inquiry into ASADA and the ASADA Act. We would like to have it, but I'd say realistically at the moment we can't do it. So the purpose of this sort of forum is to archive the footage, if you like, get people, documents tell a lot, but when you get people talking, you get the emotion and you get the different perspectives like what Rob Bennett's given tonight, and John Madigan and Bob obviously and others, and getting the overseas. The reason we got the overseas speakers is to say this is not an Australian problem. This is an international problem which comes out of a very bad framework, a very bad regulatory framework. Clearly, if you look at Kristen's experience of going into a normal sort of legal system, that's what we've got to somehow do for athletes here in Australia. We've got to find a mechanism for them to get back into the normal legal system and not be captured by a system which is clearly not appropriate, which has taken away their rights. They've got all the responsibility and they've got no rights. They've got the responsibility to determine exactly what goes into their body, a responsibility that no other individual in the community has. And that is the problem. We've got to somehow convince governments that these athletes have been denied their rights. So what we're seeing in the UK, I think what Michele described of legal actions, I thought with the Essendon problem, what we should have probably done is, I mean, Jackson's sitting up the back there is taking on a legal action, which I think is very courageous. But in a sense, the supporters, in a sense, should have taken at the time a class action. I mean, I thought it was almost, that was what I was surprised that we didn't do it, because we'd signed up our memberships to the AFL, to the club, and then through that to the AFL. And for 4 seasons, we put up with what clearly was, to me, we were denied a fair competition. And so I was surprised that some lawyer didn't think about some mechanism through whatever it means, through the competition policy, the ACC, or whatever, to say that we've been denied, not only the athletes denied natural justice, but ourselves. The problem we have at the moment is, as a group, we've come to a certain stage, and clearly we're having problems with getting a Senate inquiry. But the purpose of this symposium is to show people, not only now, but in 10, 15, 20, how long it takes, 50 years, I think I said to you in an interview some time ago, Tracey, that there were people who knew that this was a stitch-up and that it was wrong. And this symposium shows how difficult it is to redress that injustice. But clearly the way ahead is to get a system where athletes are getting into the normal court system and away from what is clearly an inappropriate regulatory system. And that's what has to happen in the future, I think. So that would be my final say on it. And I thank you all for coming tonight. I know there've been some glitches, but we're sort of a volunteer group, and we just use the technology as we can. So I think it's definitely good for the future. This will be on YouTube and on the internet, and we'll see what we do with it. We'll edit it out, and so that'll be it.